Hi, I'm Mike McLean. Welcome to the Short Circuit podcast brought to you by Swift Aircraft. In this series, we'll be chatting with a variety of people from all walks of life, but who all have one thing in common: aviation. We'll discuss how and why they got into aviation, what or who inspired them, and what they would say to encourage young people to get involved. Flight fascinates many of us, and our guests will explain why they are compelled to look to the sky. Today's chat is with Jake Brattle. I hadn't spoken with Jake previously, and yet again I discovered how much the aviation bug can get under your skin at an early age. Jake has found his specialist niche, and this has resulted in success in his business, lifestyle, and sporting endeavours. But before we kick off, I have a request. Please remember to click the like button, share with friends and colleagues, and subscribe. This really does help us get the word out. So, with that in mind, here goes. Good evening, Jake Brattle. Welcome to the Short Circuit podcast. And what we're going to do is we're going to kick off with question one, obviously. And that is, can you tell us who you are and explain what your current role is or roles are in aviation?
Good evening. Thanks for having me. So my name is Jake Brattle. I have got a number of roles within aviation. The first one at the moment, taking up most of my time, is I'm the director at Navboys Limited, which is a glider pilot's shop and also a glider pilot's workshop for maintenance on gliders. And then I'm probably better known for my achievements in gliding. So in the past few years, I've been a competition pilot representing the British team. I've also been lucky enough to fly in some incredible places like South Africa and New Zealand, which has allowed me to get a record flight. And somehow in 2019, with the help of my teammates, I managed to win the Junior World Gliding Championships.
Wow, that's
So
fantastic.
I think that's what most people know me for. And then I also help out with instructing and coaching in gliders at the weekends.
Right. Well, congratulations on the achievements. It's very impressive. I'm extremely jealous. I get very jealous of a lot of my guests on this thing. I've obviously underachieved in my life. Okay, so gliding seems to be the big thing. So we'll go on to question two, which is, so what got you started? What incident or person or how did you get going and made you look upwards?
So my granddad, on my dad's side, he used to be a pilot in the RAF. So he was training for training basically to go to war in World War II. He luckily for us, he never actually went into service. He just got his wings and was just about to go into training to fly the Lancaster bomber. But fortunately, the war ended. So he'd had all of this incredible RAF training and then left the Air Force. He sort of left aviation for a long time and then went back to it later in life. And he took me up he had a share in a Piper Arrow down at Shoreham. And he took me up in his Piper Arrow, and since then that was it. The seed was sown, and ever since that moment I knew I wanted to be a pilot, and my whole life would revolve around aviation. So yeah, I'd say he's probably my biggest inspiration.
Right. Okay. Shoreham Airport. It's been a long time since I was there, but it's a place with character. It's all was the Art Deco style. It looks like it hasn't changed since the war. You know, it's an amazing little place. So
It is.
it's been a while since I've been there though. So your grandfather. So he was training in Lancasters.
Yeah, he was training to be a Lancaster bomber pilot, and
Right.
but fortunately never got to fly one.
Yeah. Oh, never got to fly it. Oh, that must have hurt. That must have hurt.
He was gutted.
Yeah, although
Yeah, he was gutted.
having to fly would have been a dangerous thing in those days anyway. Wow, okay. So that got you bitten by the bug. So how did you get started in flying then? So I mean that showed you what you wanted to do, but what did you join clubs, cadets? What was the next step?
So from there, when I sort of knew I wanted to be a pilot, I used to be probably like every kid that wants to be a pilot. I was watching all the documentaries, I was watching YouTube videos, and one thing that really stuck out to me was a lot of the sort of best pilots, most experienced pilots, they often start out with gliding.
Hmm.
So when I was younger, I thought that I would probably start with gliding. And when I was a teenager, my granddad bought me a trial flight in a glider. And that was it. I just kept going back to the airfield at weekends.
Hmm.
Um, I was lucky in that my dad would, take me up there every weekend, and I think he wanted to, yeah, wanted to sort of promote that. He could see that I enjoyed it. It was something that people told me I was good at, so he wanted to try and encourage me to do as much of that as possible. And then from there, I went to university. So University of Bristol, I studied aerospace engineering. But I must say, I probably put most of my effort and time running the Bristol University Gliding Club,
Hmm.
and getting up to the gliding club whenever possible. Yeah. So from there, it just rolled on with gliding.
Right. Okay. I must admit, I've only been in the glider twice, and there is a purity to gliding. There's no engine. It's just you've got to make that thing work using just the elements around you. It's very different from powered flight. Also very different from parachuting, but that's a different story. When you so before you went to university, you were going up to the gliding club. Which club was that? Whereabouts in the
That
country?
was that was Kent Gliding Club.
So you got in so you never got involved with cadets or the university air squadron or anything like that?
No, I wanted to. I wanted to get into the University Air Squadron, but I had quite a bad experience actually in the interview,
Hmm.
which actually certainly put me off joining the University Air Squadron, and also put me off joining the Air Force altogether. I think, like a lot of young people, I wanted to be initially an Air Force pilot, and then going on to sort of later in life, I thought, oh, maybe become a commercial airline pilot.
Hmm.
And I'd say that sort of ambition stuck with me until university, where I really discovered gliding, and my gliding started to push on. And then from gliding, what I found was with all the cross country flying I was doing and the competition flying, that sort of fulfilled my need for aviation. It presents such a challenge, and it's so freeing and so liberating, and so in the moment that yeah, that I just enjoy it far more than any other type of flying. I've since gone on to do my power license, and I fly, SEPs and motor gliders. But yeah, for me, nothing's quite as good as getting up in a glider and going racing.
Hmm. Hmm. I need to learn more about competitive gliding. It's not something I've really looked at. So just you mentioned you had a bad experience. Is that something you want to talk about, or if you want to leave that, I can cut this bit out. So
Yeah, no. So when I went to the interview for the University Air Squadron, the guy interviewing me was the conversation was going okay, and obviously my only real experience up to that point had been gliding.
mhm.
So I mentioned to him that I was a glider pilot, sort of expecting quite a positive response because not many people are lucky enough to start gliding when they're that young. But I got the complete opposite. I got a really negative response. He said, "Oh, glider pilots are always getting in the way. They cause so many problems," and I was completely taken aback. And obviously, that was all my ammunition for this interview, was talking about all the things I've done with gliding. So from that point on, the interview went south pretty quick. And
Yeah, that seems to be, I mean, that's very counterintuitive. I mean, flight's flight, you're flying an aircraft. I think that was more his problem than yours,
I think
unfortunately.
so. I
Yeah.
think since I've gone on to meet people in the forces, yeah, that person was very much an outlier
Mhm.
amongst all the other people I've met.
All right. Okay. Interesting one. No, so gliders are now very much cutting edge technology, huge advancements in materials and construction methods and that sort of thing. Your company builds, maintains, and repairs gliders as well. So you're right into the whole structural thing, not just the actual flying.
Yeah, yeah. I say from my days at uni and from growing up, I was always quite hands-on. I always enjoyed taking things apart, putting them back together. And I always had this ambition when I was younger that I'd build my own plane, or I'd build or I'd like to be able, have those skill set to be able to build my own plane.
Mhm.
Um, so the workshop side of it, I really enjoy. I really enjoy the problem solving, the problem finding, the troubleshooting, and just the hands-on skills, using the power tools, making things better, and upgrading stuff and giving something back to the customer at the end of the day, and them being impressed in our workmanship. That really, yeah, that really pleases me, and I try to do as much of that as I possibly can.
Right. Okay. So you'll be familiar with composite materials and all this sort of stuff. So
Yes.
so you're up to speed with composites. What do you see coming next? What's coming over the horizon? What do you reckon?
So the gliding market now, it seems like every sort of new iteration of glider, new generation of glider, it's just 1% better, 1%, 2% better than the previous generation. It's getting harder and harder to achieve those performance gains.
Hmm.
So people are now looking in different areas to achieve those performance gains, which is quite exciting. So the sort of two or three big glider manufacturers nowadays. There's two of them in Germany and one of them in South Africa. They're constantly pushing the boundaries and coming up with new ways of getting the maximum performance out of the glider. So nowadays, a new glider can get 60 to 1 glide ratio. So for every 1 foot of altitude it loses, it's going 60 feet forwards, which is incredible.
Hmm.
Um, whereas back in the 70s, 80s, you're doing well if you're getting 40 to 1. So there's been a big increase since then, but now it's getting more and more difficult. They're using other sort of they're looking very much at the aerodynamics, uh, the way the wings integrate with the fuselage. So they're looking at the wing root join. That area of aerodynamics is less understood. And the same with the tailplane, where the tailplane joins to the top of the fin. They're making smaller modifications, fairings, and the like to try and improve the performance of the gliders.
Something you said there. So think about it. It's not something I'd looked at beforehand, but most gliders I've seen recently, they're all T-tail configurations. I mean, is this the standard now?
Yeah, generally for modern gliders it is. For training gliders, there's still some that are built with a conventional tailplane, but
Mhm.
most are T-tails.
Right. Okay. And that's just because it's more efficient in.
Yeah, marginally more efficient, but also gliders have to be designed with the possibility of landing in fields. And those fields could have crop, so they have to be quite robust, and that's also partly influences the design.
Mhm. Yeah, keep it out of the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. Again, something I hadn't thought about. So, interesting. So, and what about on materials? Are you seeing anybody using biocomposites? Sort of flax or hemp?
They they've they have experimented with it in the past, actually. In sort of the 90s, they were experimenting with using hemp as a core material
Hmm.
in within the laminate, carbon fiber laminate or a fiberglass laminate. More recently, everyone seems to be moving towards carbon fiber with a foam interior, and
Hmm.
that seems to be more the norm nowadays. There's there's a lot more emphasis nowadays on crashworthiness, so
Right.
making sure the fuselage is very strong. Very similar to a Formula One car, they're really concentrating on making the cockpit as robust as possible. So there'll be quite a few aramid materials mixed into the laminate as well. So the materials have changed, and they've changed a lot over the years.
Hmm.
And going forward, I'd say the biggest changes we're seeing is propulsion. So a lot of gliders run with a sustainer engine, or they might even have a self-launching engine, so they're capable of taking off on their own. But the propulsion historically has always been piston engines, whereas now we're going towards electric, which
Hmm.
is looking a lot more popular.
Yeah, the last one I got up close to, I think it was a stem. It had a pop-up electric motor. In fact, there was two. There was one which had a pop-up electric motor, which I'm assuming is the sustainer, and there was another one which had, I'm assuming it was a piston engine. It had flown into Sywell from Germany, I think. This has
Yep.
gone back a few years now, and that was quite an aircraft because it was massive and the wingspan was absolutely huge. And
Yeah.
yeah, come across with this. I don't know if they. I'm assuming they would get up to height and switch the engine off and glide as far as possible, and then regain height and sort of slowly leapfrog their way across Europe and the Channel.
Yeah, yeah. So usually on a good thermal day in the UK, for example, we can fly 300 to 500 kilometers quite easy. Again, so we'll take off in the morning. You usually be towed up, or you
Mm,
might take a winch launch, which is a big engine at the other end of the field with two winch cables. That launches you into the air, and then you're away. You're looking for thermals. And
mm,
like you say, you use the thermals as stepping stones to cover distance across the country. And the skill is really in being able to read the sky and read the terrain and work out where the lift is likely to be, where the strongest lift is likely to be. And when you've used one of those, what we call thermals, to climb up, is then looking at the sky and working out the best route through the sky on the way to your next thermal. Um, and that's where the competitive element comes in. So on a competition flight, they might set a task that says, say, go from Lasham in the south to, I don't know, Oxford to Cambridge, back to Lasham, something like that.
mhm.
And the person that does that the fastest wins effectively. So yeah, that's kind of the more cross-country racing side of gliding that I really enjoy and I've been involved with.
That sounds like a real challenge. So you're literally cloud hopping. You're looking for ridges. You're looking for uh, villages, towns, motorways. I guess would be a good source of heat at times.
Yeah, yeah. If you're getting low and desperate, then anything like that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Generally, we want to try and stay higher, so we prefer to look at the clouds. But
Hmm.
quite often it's blue, and we don't have any clouds, and there's still thermals, so
Yeah.
we can still fly across country even if it's blue.
Hmm. Excellent. I must admit, I mean, watching clouds and reading the sky is, apart from being very zen and calming, it's quite interesting just watching the atmosphere move around. And the
Mm.
more you know, the and you're using. I mean, I mean, I can sit and look at clouds and take photographs or whatever, but if you're using it to propel yourself, you must get really, really dialed into the environment. So that must be good. I take it you also keep an eye open for birds and watch what they're doing because you get the soaring birds and
Yeah, yeah, but birds are a glider pilot's friend. Some people say never trust the seagulls, but even seagulls sometimes find these thermals. So yeah, you're looking for birds, other gliders, sometimes smoke coming up from the ground,
Mhm.
or combine harvesters. They're very good at triggering a thermal.
All right.
Yeah, all these little things that you're looking for.
So,
Um,
well, what altitudes are you reaching then?
In the UK, a good day would be a 5,000 foot cloud base,
Okay.
and yeah, us glider pilots, we're lucky enough that we can make use of the cloud base. So ideally, we want to stay in the top half of convection. We say so 2,500 feet and up to 5,000 feet would be good. More common in the UK, we're probably getting a good day if we're up at 3,500 cloud base, something like that. Um,
Okay.
but these heights are very low compared to Europe. You go to Europe, you get double that on a good day.
Hmm.
So UK is quite unique in that respect.
Yeah. I'm assuming that's just because we're an island next to a very large sea.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. So, you were bitten by the bug in your very early years, and then worked your way through, did university and all the rest of it. Do you have any interaction with the education system? Do you promote STEM? Do you have volunteers coming to work with you? And secondly to that, would you, I'm assuming the answer is yes, but why would you encourage young people to get involved with aviation and, in your case, particular gliding?
So say at the moment, my involvement with STEM, I've been I give occasionally give talks at schools. I give quite a few presentations at gliding clubs, particularly aimed at juniors to try and encourage them to progress. But I'd say the the biggest thing that or yeah, the biggest advantage I'd say that aviation has for young people is it gives you such a wide skill set. If you go and spend a weekend at a gliding club, You'll learn how to drive a vehicle. If you've never driven a vehicle before, you'll learn how to repair cables. If you're repairing the winch, you'll learn how to handle gliders on the ground, how to push them around, how to launch them. You'll learn how to hook them on. You'll learn basic maintenance tasks for looking after them. You'll learn, and then obviously on top of all of that, you'll hopefully learn how to fly them.
Mhm.
There's so many useful skills that can help you in day-to-day life. And there's also quite a lot of you get quite a lot of training. You know, people will take you under your wing and try and make sure that you progress well. And that I'd say is the biggest help that I think that certainly the gliding scene can offer.
Yeah, I think mentoring is such a two-way street because the young person gains a lot of knowledge and experience, and the mentor is very satisfying, and you continue to learn from young people. You some of the questions they'll ask and some of the things they'll say will really catch you by surprise, and you go, I never thought of the world that way around before. So it can be funny, can be embarrassing as well, right now.
Yeah.
But um, the other thing, I guess, with gliding, this came up in a previous conversation, is the whole teamwork thing, because you can't really go gliding on your own. You need at least one other person to help you get in the air, and probably three or four, I would guess.
Yeah. Yeah, so exactly. So it's really good at teaching you how to work in a team. Like you say, you need people to get you in the air, but you also need people to get you back to the launch point when you've landed. Or if you land in a field, you need people to come and get you with the trailer and
Mhm.
help you take the glider apart. So yeah, it really does help with teaching you teamwork.
There's a couple of things about gliding which well, if I've been sort of daydreaming about it, I'd be going, right, okay, so there's one thing is that you've got one attempt at your landing unless the circumstances are extraordinary. So you can't, it's not like you can do a aborted landing, or you can't go around again. So you've got to get it right first time. So there's an element of pressure that comes with that. But I've never heard anybody from the gliding community sort of really stress that as a difficult thing. I mean, you've a couple of times you mentioned something, so you've got to land in a field, but that you say that in a very casual way, as if it doesn't phase you.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm assuming that's something you have to get your head around very, very quickly. And the other thing that follows on from that is, if you do land in the field, what's the situation? What do you get farmers chasing you with a shotgun saying "Get off my land," or chasing you with pitchforks, or
Yes, so fortunately, it's not got that bad for me yet. But I say that the reason I say it so casually is because I've landed in so many fields over the years. So I should firstly say that us glider pilots, we always try and avoid landing in fields. We
Mhm.
don't want to land in fields. We always aim to get back to where we took off from. But occasionally we will land in fields and we receive training. We receive quite a lot of training. So once you've gone solo, there's further training that you receive, which teaches you how to soar, and then as part of that, teaches you how to navigate, and also teaches you how to land in fields and pick fields and choose fields, because the field selection process is one of the most important bits of field landings. So yeah, we get a lot of practice, and we do the practice in motor gliders. So we can go up, try and approach. We will never touch down, but we'll just go up, try and approach, and go around again. So yeah, we get a lot of practice at it, and only with that practice do you become comfortable that you can choose a field consistently,
Mhm.
and keep yourself safe.
Right, okay. You mentioned motor gliders. Again, strange things, really. There's sort of a niche end of the aviation world. So with Swift aircraft, we also have Europa aircraft, and the Europa can be adapted as a motor glider. I was amazed. Somebody told me, you talked about glide ratio earlier on, and I believe the Europa is something like a glide ratio of 27 to 1, which I thought was phenomenal for such a device with a big lump of an engine, well, big lump, a small lump of an engine stuck up the front. Because that was about the same glide ratio as some of the gliders, or the gliders that were around when I was in the cadets and getting my first experience. And now you're saying we're up to 60 to 1 ratio. So yeah, the world has moved on somewhat, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I've flown the Europa motor glider, so
Hmm.
yeah,
What did you think?
it as a touring aircraft, it's fantastic. I love the Europa. If I'm ever lucky enough to buy one or to build one, I'm yeah gonna try and get hold of one.
Hmm.
But
See me
yeah,
afterwards.
yeah. Yeah, but yeah, motor gliders are becoming quite popular nowadays. The reason for that is just because of the cost of flying, the cost of
Hmm.
pilot training. So a lot of people are turning to motor gliders to do their PPLs. You could the way the licenses work now is you can do your PPL and a TMG, touring motor glider, and then convert that to an SEP. And that's how I actually did mine, and it just brings the cost of the PPL down so significantly. Um, and I think a lot of people are looking to motor gliders just as touring aircraft because they're so much generally cheaper to run. And you can use them for the gliding element as well, which is always good fun.
Hmm. So time is cranking on. So very briefly, tell me a little bit about your company then. What areas does Navboys cover?
So we try to we've become a one-stop shop for glider pilots. So if you need to buy any equipment for your glider or any equipment to go gliding, we try to make sure we've got it in stock and we get it to you quickly. We also try to pride ourselves on having sort of the knowledge about how to use it all. So like every industry, technology is changing all the time, and trying to keep up with it is very difficult. So we try and help people over the phone, over email, understand how to use their equipment.
Okay.
And then, yeah, the other side of it is the glider repair and glider maintenance and glider upgrades. So we can install avionics, we can repair broken gliders, and we can just do normal annual servicing as well. So that side of the business as well has allowed me to also try and encourage youth. So we also run work experience programs, and I'm currently looking into being able to offer apprenticeship roles as well to try and to try and encourage younger people into the sector. I know a lot of people have said it to you before, but the aviation sector in the UK is dying out for more engineers and young engineers in particular. So so yeah, there's a lot of demand, a lot of interest, and a lot of people like me that are struggling to find good people to fill those shoes. So it's a good sector to get into for young people at the moment.
Right. Well said. As the clock is ticking on, um, I've got to come to the big question of the day, and that is, what's your favorite aircraft and why?
So if you asked me this when I was a kid, I would have said the Sally B-17.
Okay.
And it was just because my granddad used to take me to air shows, and that was always the most impressive aircraft that I used to love watching flying.
Hmm.
Um, And as I've got older and got into gliding, I'd say there's one glider in particular, which is the JS1B, which is made by a company in South Africa, Yonkers Sailplanes.
Hmm.
And what they've sort of done in recent times to push and develop the gliding industry has been really inspiring. So gliding manufacture used to be dominated by the Germans,
Hmm.
and they came in the early 2000s and created this incredible aircraft that was able to compete with the very best German gliders, having not really had any sort of experience building gliders before. And this aircraft was so good, such high performing glider, as well as being so lovely to fly. It's always been my favorite glider to fly, and got an impressive story behind it as well.
Okay. And so the Junkers of South Africa, would they be connected to the historic Junkers from Germany from World War II?
No, I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of.
Right. Okay. There's maybe a story there, but
Yeah, I'll have to ask.
yeah. Yeah. Be careful. Tread carefully. So okay, so it's not an aircraft I'm aware of. So you've got a glider, the Sally B's historic and nostalgic, but you're going with the glider,
Yeah, I'd go with the glider now. If I could have any aircraft, it would be the JS1.
JS1. Right, cool. So that's decided. So that's going on the board. So Nav Boy, so you've moved to the north of England now, so up to Cheshire. Next time I'm coming down the M6, I'll keep an eye open for you. Oh,
Yeah, You're welcome to pop in.
Oh, I would love to do that. Thank you very much. That'd be great. Okay, so we'll come to the end of this conversation. Thank you very much for your time, especially this late in the evening. It's been great. So I look forward to meeting you at some point. I'll pop in and see you. And if you ever make it down to East Anglia, please come around and see us at RAF Coltishall. I'm going to say, Jake Brattle, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And as I always say, fly safe.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So that was Jake Brattle. Gliding is often unknown or ignored by many, but on the short circuit it has frequently come into the conversation, especially as a gateway into aviation. Jake's sporting success at international level and his ability to use his entrepreneurial skills to create a business in that field demonstrate that it's certainly possible to make a living from doing what you love. It's also heartening to hear that such enthusiasm is also being directed at bringing the next generation along. Yet again, it's recognised that we need to engage with our youth to protect our future by #InspiringAviation. So with that in mind, remember to fly safe. You have been listening to The Short Circuit, presented by Mike McLean and sponsored by Swift Aircraft with the #InspiringAviation. This has been a Zoom Spike production.